The horse went down in the drift and did not get up, and Nora Hale understood that she was now going to live or die on the strength of her own 2 legs. She came off the dying animal into snow to her thighs, and the wind took the breath straight out of her mouth before she could use it, and the trail she had been following an hour ago was simply gone. Erased. White on white. The whole mountain turned into one blind, howling thing that wanted her down. She had a trunk she could not carry, and a lantern already guttering, and a dress on a paper folded into her glove. And somewhere up this slope, the man who had sent for her was either home or he was not. She left the trunk. She left the horse. She put her head down into the wind and climbed, because the only other choice was to lie down in the snow, and she had not come 400 miles to lie down. Before this story goes any further, if you believe that the coldest places can hold the warmest truths, and that the right person arrives in your life exactly when the world has closed its door, then please subscribe to this channel and stay with me to the very end. Comment the name of your city below so I can see how far this story travels tonight. Every city, every name, it means the world to me. Now hold on, because the man Nora Hale was climbing that mountain to find had not spoken a true word to a living soul in 4 years. And over the days that storms sealed them in together, he was going to say the one thing he had sworn he would carry to his grave. The year was 1889, and the place was a single cabin high on the shoulder of a mountain above the town of Bitterroot Falls, in the cold country of western Montana, where the winter did not visit so much as move in and take over the house. Nora Hale had come up from Illinois on the strength of an arrangement, which was the polite word for it. She was to keep house for a man named Eli Vane, cook, clean, mind the place through the winter, and the arrangement had been made through a marriage agent in Helena, which was the still more polite word for the fact that if the winter went well, there might be a wedding in the spring, and if it did not, there would be wages and a coach ticket home and no hard feelings on either side. She was a large woman. She had been a large woman her whole life, tall and broad and heavy through the shoulders, and she had told the agent so plainly, because she had learned long ago that a thing better said than discovered. The agent had written back that Eli Vane had asked only one question about the woman who'd answer, whether she was the sort who quit. He did not care, the letter said, what she looked like. He cared whether she'd stay. The man at the freight depot in Bitterroot Falls, the one who'd pointed her toward the mountain road that morning, had not been so delicate. Vane's place, he'd said, and looked her up and down the way they all did. The long measuring look that started high and traveled low and made its arithmetic somewhere around her boots. Big woman like you, going up to Vane's. Well, a short laugh, not quite under his breath. He's run off 3 already. Don't talk. Don't come down to town but twice a year. Something happened to him up there a few winters back, and nobody rightly knows what. Only that the man who came down after wasn't the man who went up. He jerked his chin at the white ridgeline. Storm's coming in tonight too. You'd be smarter to wait it out down here. She had learned a long time ago that stopping only gave them the satisfaction of watching it land, so she had not waited. She had hired the horse and gone up, and the storm had come in faster than anyone reckoned, and now there was no down to go back to, only up, and the cabin, and the man who did not talk. She reached it more dead than alive. She did not knock so much as fall against the door, and it opened, and there was warmth and lamplight and the dark shape of a man filling the frame, and she got out 4 words. Nora Hale. You sent, before the cold finished with her and her knees went, and the last thing she knew was a pair of arms catching her that were stronger than any she had ever been caught by, and a voice, rusty with disuse, saying one low word that might have been Lord. She woke by his stove under 3 blankets with her boots off and her feet wrapped warm. And Eli Vane sitting across the room watching her with the wariness of a man watching weather. He was younger than she'd thought, and worn older than his years. Dark-bearded, still, with eyes that had the scoured look of a man who had wept himself empty a long time ago and never refilled. He did not waste words. He told her the storm would last days, that the trail was gone and the pass closed, that she was stuck here with him whether either of them liked it, and there was no help for it. He told her where things were. He did not ask if she was frightened to be sealed alone in a remote cabin with a strange, silent man, and she understood that this was its own kind of courtesy. He was giving her the dignity of being assumed equal to it. "You caught me at the door," she said. "Thank you for that." He looked at her a moment. "You climbed a mountain in a blizzard," he said. "I didn't do anything you didn't do harder." And that was the most words she would get out of him for a day and a half. The storm shut them in, and the cabin grew small around them, and Nora Hale did what she always did, which was work. She found the kitchen end of the place in the state of a man who fed himself from cans and didn't see the point of more. The stove caked, the stores in disorder, good flour going to weevil in an open sack. She did not remark on it. She rolled her sleeves and set it right. By the second evening the cabin smelled of bread, the first bread it had held in years, and she watched the smell of it do something to Eli Vane that no words of hers could have. Watched him go still at the table. Watched his face open for half a second before he closed it again, the way a man closes a door he's afraid to be caught standing in. She cut a piece while it was still warm and set it in front of him with a little of the wild plum preserve she'd found him hoarding for no reason she could see. "Eat," she said. "You've gone thin as a fence rail." He ate. He ate the way a man eats who has forgotten that food could be a kindness rather than only a fuel. Slow at first and then not slow. And when he was done, he sat looking at the empty plate for a long moment, as if it had asked him something. "My wife used to bake," he said, finally, and it came out of him like a tooth, like something rooted and painful pulled. Then he stood and went to the window and watched the storm, and she understood she was not meant to answer, only to have heard, and so she let the silence be what he needed it to be. It came out of him over the days the way thaw comes, not all at once, but in trickles. Then in a flood he could not stop once it started. Her name had been Sarah. There had been a child coming 4 winters back, a storm like this one. Worse, he said, though Nora could not imagine worse, had closed the pass in early November, weeks before anyone looked for it, and Sarah had taken sick with the child still months off, a fever that climbed and climbed. And Eli Vane had stood in his own doorway, in his own dooryard, and looked down a mountain at a town with a doctor in it, 4 miles and a closed pass away, and he had understood that there was no getting down and no getting help up, that the same snow keeping them warm was burying them alive. He had done everything a man could do, which was nothing, which was hold her, which was watch. She had died on the 3rd night. The child with her, and the pass had not opened for 6 more weeks, and Eli Vane had spent those 6 weeks alone in a cabin with the 2 of them, because the ground was iron and there was nowhere to put them, and he had not been right since. And he had not told a living soul the whole of it, because there were no words that did not make it smaller than it was. "I let her die," he said on the 4th night, the storm screaming against the walls. "Folks down there think I'm half mad, and they're not wrong. I had the doctor's name, and I couldn't reach him. I had 2 hands, and they were good for nothing. What use is a man who can't?" He stopped. His jaw worked. "I should have brought her down in October," She wanted to stay. I let her. I tell myself 100 ways it wasn't my doing, and not one of them holds past midnight. Nora Hale had buried people too. She knew that there was no word in the language that made it better, and that the ones who tried only proved they'd never done it. So she did not reach for words. She got up, and she crossed the small cabin, and she sat down beside him, not touching, only there, close enough that he could feel another living warmth against the cold, and she stayed. She did not tell him it wasn't his fault. She did not tell him Sarah would have wanted him to go on. She did not minimize the size of the thing or pretend it was less than it was. She simply sat, which was its own form of speech, and the speech of it was, "I am here, and this is real, and I am not going to look away from it." They sat like that a long time, and the storm went on, and at some point in the night his shoulder came to rest against hers, and neither of them spoke of it, and neither of them moved away. He did not sleep that night, and so neither did she. There is a kind of sickness that is not in the body, and Nora had nursed enough of it to know it needs the same thing the body does, not to be left alone in the dark with it. So she kept the fire up, and she stayed awake in the chair beside him through the long middle hours, and when he talked, she listened. And when he went silent, she let the silence sit. And when near 3 in the morning he said, lo, that he had not let anyone keep a vigil over him since the night Sarah died, and did not know why he was letting her. She told him it was because she had not asked his leave, and he made a sound that was almost a laugh. The first she'd heard from him. By the gray of dawn the worst of it had passed out of him the way a fever passes, leaving him wrung out and quiet and, she thought, a little lighter. A man who had set down something he'd carried alone for 4 winters and found that the floor held it. He slept then, finally, in the chair, his head fallen toward her shoulder, and she did not move for an hour for fear of waking him. And she watched the snow come down, and she felt something settle in her own chest that she had stopped expecting the world to offer her. He began to do things after that without saying so. She woke the 5th morning to find the woodbox by her end of the cabin filled to the top, when it had been his habit to keep the wood by his own stove. When she hauled water from the melt barrel, he was there to take the bucket's weight before she asked. He mended the strap on her trunk, for he had gone out in a lull and dragged the trunk up the last quarter-mile she'd abandoned it, her whole life's belongings, and said nothing about the doing of it, only set it by the door dried and mended as if it had walked up on its own. She never thanked him for these things, because she understood that thanks would name them, and naming them would close that door he was so afraid of standing in. She only let them be done. A person learns to read the things a man does instead of says. The storm broke on the 7th day, sudden and total, the wind dying between 1 hour and the next, leaving a world gone blinding and silent and new. And it was then, with the way down opening, that the real trouble came up. The town had not been idle. Word had reached Bitterroot Falls that the strange Vane had taken a woman up the mountain. An arrangement woman, and the same depot agent who'd laughed at her, had carried the tale down to a man named Pruitt, who held the note on Eli Vane's land, for the 4 lost winters had cost Vane dear, and he was behind. And Pruitt had wanted that mountain water a long time, and had been waiting only for an excuse. The excuse he'd settled on was the woman. A respectable claim, he reckoned, that Vane was unfit, half mad, everyone said so, kept a woman up there in sin, ran off all his help, and that the land should go to a sound man who'd put it to use. He had ridden up with the thaw, and the depot agent with him, and a deputy from the county to make it lawful, expecting to find a broken recluse and a woman who'd be glad of rescue. He found Nora Hale standing in the dooryard, and she did not look in want of rescuing. "Ma'am," the deputy started, "we've had report that you're being kept here against." I climbed this mountain in a blizzard of my own free will, Nora said. To take an honest position, I answered honestly. I've been fed, kept warm, and treated with more decency in 7 days than the town of Bitterroot Falls showed me in the one afternoon I spent in it. If you've ridden up to rescue me, you've wasted your morning. Pruitt did not like that. The man's unsound. Whole county knows it. Whatever he's told you up here, he told me how his wife died, Nora said. And her voice cut clean through. He told me he stood in this dooryard 4 years ago and watched the past that's behind you bury her alive because not one soul down in that town could reach him, and he couldn't reach them. That's the madness you've all been whispering about. A man grieving a thing the rest of you were too comfortable to imagine. And now that he's behind on a note, he fell behind on burying her. You've ridden up with a deputy to take his land while the snow's still on it. She looked at Pruitt the way you'd look at something you'd found under a rock. I'd be ashamed to be you. I expect you don't have the practice. And then Eli Vane came out of the cabin, and he did the thing the depot agent would carry down the mountain and tell in every kitchen in the county for a year. He spoke. He had not strung that many words together in 4 years, and they came rough, but they came plain, and a man who does not waste words does not waste them now. Pruitt, he said, you want my water. You've wanted it since before Sarah. You waited till I was down to take it, and you've dressed it up in worry for a woman who doesn't need your worry. He came down off the step, slow, steady, no longer the broken man the county had drawn in its head. I'm behind on the note. I'll have it cleared by the spring drive, and you know it, which is why you came now. There's nothing unsound here but your timing. He stood beside Nora Hale, close, and let the whole party see where he stood. This woman saved a man you all gave up on. I don't mean the storm, though there's that. I mean she walked into a dead house and made it a living one in 7 days, which is more than any of you managed in 4 years of leaving me to rot up here and calling it respect for my grief. The deputy can see I'm housed, sane, and current enough on my obligations to keep my land. The rest of you can turn your horses around. The deputy, who was a fair man caught in another man's scheme, looked at the mended fence and the smoke from the chimney and the clear-eyed pair in the dooryard, and he closed his book, and he told Pruitt that he saw no unsound man and no woman in distress, and no cause to do anything but ride back down. Pruitt rode back down. The depot agent rode back down, and he was the one who told it after. Told the whole county how the mad recluse of Bitterroot Falls had come down off his step and spoken like a sane and angry man. How the big woman they'd laughed up the mountain had faced down Pruitt and the law together, and not given an inch. How the two of them had stood in that dooryard like something that could not be moved. The county that had whispered Eli Vane was half mad found it had to put down its whisper. Because half-mad men do not save their own land with a few clear sentences, and the county that had measured Nora Hale and found her too much discovered it had measured wrong. Eli Vane cleared his note that spring, as he'd said he would. And before the drive, on a clear cold Sunday with the pass open and the whole of Bitterroot Falls assembled, he came down off his mountain and into the church he had not entered in 4 years, and married Nora Hale in front of every soul who had ever laughed at either of them. He said little at the wedding, being who he was. But he said one thing, turning at the front of that church to the gathered town, that the depot agent swore he heard plain. You all thought the mountain took everything out of me 4 years ago. He looked down at the woman beside him. It didn't. It was just keeping it till the right person climbed up to find it. Thank you for coming. You can go on home now. They built a life up on that mountain that the town came, in time to speak of, with something close to envy. The cabin grew. Children came and lived because Nora Hale watched the sky in October the way a sailor watches it, and never once let the past close on a soul she loved without the doctor's road still open beneath them. The smell of bread never left those walls again, and Eli Vane, who had not spoken for 4 years, became in his older age a man who talked more than his wife sometimes cared for, which she told him, dryly, was a fine complaint to have. In the autumn of 1921, their eldest daughter was married under the tamaracks Nora had planted by the cabin door, and the old woman watching from her chair, broad still, white now, her hands gone soft after a long life of hard use, was asked by the bride what it had been like, that first winter, sealed up a whole storm with a stranger who would not speak. Nora Vane was quiet a while. He spoke, she said finally, when it mattered. Folks down there had it backward all those years. They thought the silence was the wound. It wasn't. The silence was the bandage. He was just waiting for someone he could afford to bleed in front of. She looked out at the white peaks that had taken so much and, in the end, given her everything. They told me my whole life I was too much. Too big. Too plain. Too much woman for the room. And then a storm shut me up a mountain, with a man who'd lost everything, and the only thing that saved either of us was that I was exactly enough, every inch of me, to carry what he handed me and not break under it. She took her daughter's hand. Don't you ever let a soul price you, child. I climbed a mountain in a blizzard to learn it. And you can have it for free. She had stopped asking the world's leave a long time ago, somewhere on that white slope, perhaps, with the wind trying to put her down and her own 2 legs refusing, and from that climb on, she never once apologized for the space it took to be exactly who she was. The mountain had tried to bury her. Instead, it had handed her a life, and she had taken it up with both hands, her whole self filling every inch of the room she had earned.